Arch Advocate Podcast, Monday, April 15th. You know what I hate? Excuse me. I hate it when people refer to something or someone as being the worst, quote unquote. Right? Oh, that's the worst. Like anytime somebody uses that, like if I can't see their face, if I just hear somebody saying that, I just imagine like a skinny soy boy with like a knitted scarf around his neck, with like a thin beard and a man bun, and like Devo glasses. I don't even know what those would be called. You know, like thick black framed glasses. Like just, oh my God, that's the worst. Like it's just an empty. It's like a phrase that doesn't mean, has no meaning. You know. Oh, that's the word. I hate it when people say that. Or like when people say, that's amazing. You know, I'm trying to think of like a soy boy name. Hey, Cooper, do you know who I ran into yesterday? Who? Bella. Oh my God, that's amazing. No, that's not what amazing. That's not what that means. Oh, you freaky SJW man bun wearing. It's gross. Oh my God, she's the worst. It doesn't mean anything. I hate that because it's meaningless. And it's like it's like it's like one of those tags on the inside of your shirt, like not the price tag, but like when you buy a new shirt and there's a tag on the inside, right, that was sewn in by the manufacturer, and it it digs into your skin when you're wearing it, and it like makes you itch. It's like a tag. You know? It's like a tag of the times that we're living in. It's just like meaningless words that just cause irritation. But it's a tag, you know what I mean? Like it's literature that's built into the fabric of today's society. It's just like these meaningless words, meaningless phrases. Oh my God, that person, that Bella, it's so amazing that you ran into her because she's the worst. Doesn't mean anything. Got that? All right? Take a snapshot of everything I just said. Put that on a shelf for a second. Ilhan Omar is the worst. Oh, God. She truly is amazing. Right? That's what amazement is. You see this lady who, like, when she look, I'm going to give you a descriptor here. Just tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm being over the top because I hate her guts, because she is, in fact, the worst. Like, of her, like, if you were given a choice, right? There's three people. There's Talita Rashib, or whatever her name is, with her freaky face, who we're going to get that mother effer. Her, AOC, or Ilhan Omar. You can only remove one from Congress. You have to keep the other two for the full term until the next vote. You can only remove one. Do you not remove her because although AOC says really stupid things, she hasn't said things like, oh, 9/11, that was just some people doing something. The worst. And when you see her face, like when you watch that video or just hear it on a soundbite or whatever, I'm not going to play it. But you've all seen it. You've all heard it. It's like the response can only be to just stand there in amazement. Like, what? Wow. 3,000 people died that day. Very nearly 3,000 people died that day. And some animals. 17 animals. Or was it 19? Amazement. I stand in amazement. Like, this person sits in the United States Congress. One of the three, as AOC would put it, chambers of government. Up from the 36 chambers. She sits in one of only three branches of our government. We only have three. She's in one of those three. Amazement. Amazement's when like you see something and it so stuns you that you don't know what to do. Right? Like the truly like a true amazement. Like when you see the word amazement like in the Bible, it doesn't mean like, "Oh my God, Cooper, that's amazing." That's not what that means. You guys remember what was that movie where the meteor hit the planet and it wasn't the one with Bruce Willis, but it was the other one with Morgan Freeman. Remember that? Remember the lady with her dad that were standing on the beach as the gigantic 1,000-story tidal wave was coming in because of the meteor impact. Like if you were standing on that beach and that gigantic wall of water was coming to kill you and you knew like I'm just seconds away from dying, that would be this. You would then have achieved like the state of amazement where you're just like, "Whoa, I don't know really what to do with this information." Like, amazing. I'm stunned. It's a mixture of like being horrified that there's a person out there who thinks that way. But then there's the horror of this person is in one of only three chambers of our government. We have three branches. And she's in one of them. That's amazing. And she is the worst. And she's doubling down again. And going on TV. Now, this is where we're at as a people. Now, again, remember, one of the reasons this is happening, you have to look at it this way. Well, at least if I shouldn't say you have to. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. You're a grown adult. You can do whatever you want to do. I would prefer that you would think of it this way. The reason this is happening is to get you locked into a state of amazement and fear. To stare into that abyss and go crazy. Because after all, she's not your congressperson. You don't have, like if you could write her a letter to her, to her office or whatever, but it's not going to do you any good. You're not one of her constituents. You should write to your congressperson, but like there's really not a lot you can do. Supposedly, is it with a D or a B in the middle? I mean, there's really not a lot you can do except for stand there and just feel sick. Looking at this, going, what? How? I remember September 11th. I was a fully formed adult when that happened. I remember it like it was yesterday. Because once you reach a certain age, all memories appear to you as if it was yesterday. And September 11th of 2001 appears in almost all of our memories as having happened just yesterday. Once you get past like, I don't know, 20, 21, maybe, it's all fresh. And this lady goes up there and says, oh, that's what I was going to say. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm just trying to stay. When Ilhan Omar scrunches up her face and scrunches up her brow, does or does not her eye socket look like two brown anuses? Am I wrong on that? Like, I know there's a particular part of that that's mean, but there's also a part of that is, like, I'm correct. When she scrunches up her face and she does that thing with her nose and with her brow, it looks like she has two buttholes where her eye sockets were only moments before. Am I wrong? You guys write to me on Telegram, on Twitter, whatever. Can't do my Facebook anymore. Wink, wink. Can't do my Facebook anymore. I got banned again, another 30 days. So I just said, F it. I'm going to take my wife had a separate account. So I just said, honey, she fought me on it for a couple of days, but then she saw the light. Anyways, if you want to debate, like, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you don't see that when you see she looks like two buttholes on her face. Which is funny because I've seen a few memes where she's wearing her little head wrapping, and it's like this isn't a hijab. This is a diaper because my head is full of shit. And I laughed and laughed and laughed. Don't go crazy looking at this. This is when you start feeling the crazy. That is your call to prayer. Right? You have to close your eyes and pray. Dear God, Father in heaven, Most High God, what do you want me to do with this information? How can I be of service to the kingdom of God? Please tell me, and I don't mean to be pushy, but if you could tell me sooner rather than later, I think that would be in the best interest of all humanity. But not my will, but yours be done. Right? When you start feeling frustrated at this stuff, that is your call to prayer. We go over this topic almost every time I read the daily devotional. It's the stress that is your call to prayer. Stress and frustration and amazement, all these things, those are God's way of, that's like your built-in biological system of telling you, like, you better pray about this, young man, young woman. You better pray about this. Because if you don't, you'll go crazy. And that's exactly what the demons want. That's why we're seeing all of this. This thing with the Donald Trump figuring out that figuring out that he can, in fact, legally take these illegal migrants and ship them off to sanctuary cities, that he would be completely within the law to do that. Now that's amazing. That is amazing. Wow. Donald Trump, he's just the best. What a great thing. Hey, you know what? I want to talk a little bit about that. I better do it because I'm going to forget if I don't, because there's some other things I want to get to. I want to talk about Donald Trump shipping off. Now remember, the news has told us, and the Democrats have told us, and Alyssa Milano, and Sean Penn, and Robert De Niro have told us, and Alec Baldwin. Boy, that Alec Baldwin, man, what a shame. I was way into 30 Rock when it was on. And he was so good, so funny. Remember that episode? Did you guys watch that show? There was that episode where he was sitting there with Tracy Morgan, and he was doing all of these impersonations in one sitting. Right? It was so funny. It's such a shame that guy's a lefty. Anyways, these people would have you believe, and there's even been economists, right? They bring these economists on and they say, immigrants are a net positive to the economy of the United States because they tend to be more entrepreneurial, they work harder, blah, blah, blah. Now, on its face, believe it or not, that is actually true. That is factually accurate. And when these economists go on Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity or wherever it is that they go, they never make the distinction between an immigrant and an illegal immigrant. Because those are two completely different, it's not even the same thing. Yes, typically the most successful people in America right now are first and second generation migrants. Because they come here and they're like, you mean to tell me all I got to do, I can just have as much as I want and it's all based on how hard I work? You're kidding me. And they get out there and they bust their ass. But those are the people who came here legally. And they don't live in fear of being deported because they know, like, no, my paperwork is in order. I got my green card. I'm cool. I'm in process to become an American citizen. That takes usually around 5 or 6 years. Like, I'm cool. And nobody's going to, if they come to my house and say, hey, show me your green card. Like, I got it. It's in my wallet. I'm good. and they use this it's purposeful lack of distinction. Well, migrants are a net positive to the economy. Yeah, well, yes, indeed, they actually are. However, illegal immigrants are completely not good. They come here, they put their unvaccinated kids into our school where our tax dollars pay for their education. They come from places where their children are kids can die from just having a fever, and do. And so every time, little Juan gets the snivels, they all run to the emergency room. Now, they're not here legally and they don't have any money, but in America, we don't turn people away, so somebody's going to pay for it. And guess who that is? You and me, the taxpayer. We pay for it. And then there's the housing and the food and the medicines and the education, and it's just a drain. And then when the dad finally does go to work, they take some of that money and they ship it back to their abuela back there in Guatemala. And they just ship that money right out of the United States. Billions of dollars every year. So there's a distinction there. Now, why would somebody want to make sure that distinction was not made? Because in one second you're talking about immigrants, which immigrants, legal immigrants, are in fact a net positive on our economy. For the most part, right? There's some parts where the fact that they are, so hardworking and whatever, kind of blows back on us, but that's a different conversation. But illegal immigrants are just a drain. It's just draining money. Why would you want to not make that distinction in a conversation with somebody like Tucker Carlson or Rachel Maddow or Anderson Cooper or Sean Hannity or whoever it is, Chris Matthews? Why would you want to leave that out, Young Turks? Well, that's actually what's called propaganda, right? Now, I was going to start off the show, old PD Word Snob is back and in full effect. You guys know I love words. I love words. And words are not evil nor righteous. Even the words evil and righteous by themselves are not evil and righteous. Right? Words are just words and they have meanings. Propaganda has a meaning and it has a history. Let me read you this history. This is from Merriam-Webster, which, I don't know, I'm starting to believe that even the Merriam-Webster website was bought out by Google, because some of these things are just like, I don't know about that. The history of propaganda. Propaganda is today most often used in reference to political statements. But the word comes to our language through its use in a religious context. The Congregatio de Propaganda Fide, or Congregation for Propagating the Faith, was an organization established in 1622. Okay, I'm sorry. The Congregation for Propagating the Faith was an organization that was established in 1622 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue by Pope Gregory XV. What is that, 15? Am I reading that wrong? As a means of furthering Catholic missionary activity. The word propaganda is from the ablative singular feminine of propagandus. Because remember, Latin words are pronounced in the male or the female. Propagandus, which is the gerundive. You know what? I don't think I've ever seen that word before. A gerundive of the Latin propagare, meaning to propagate. Okay, so propagate. That's where that word comes from. There's nothing nefarious about the word propagate. And propaganda, that's where that word comes from. The first use of the word propaganda without the rest of the Latin title in English was in the reference to the Catholic organization. It was not until the beginning of the 19th century that it began to be used as a term denoting ideas or information that are questionable, or that are of questionable accuracy as a means of advancing a cause. So that's the history of it. It wasn't until the last 100 or so years that people started applying that word to politicking or advertising or that sort of thing. And what is kind of worthy of note here is that directly underneath what I just read to you, it says examples of propaganda in a sentence. And there are two examples, and one of them is from Maria Shriver, the Kennedy lady who married the Terminator. And the other, interestingly enough, is from C.S. Lewis. And if you've been listening to the show for any amount of time, you'll know that I am a big fan of C.S. Lewis. And it goes like this. Here's an example of propaganda in a sentence. They see all clear thinking, all sense of reality, and all fineness of living, threatened on every side by propaganda, by advertisement, by film and television. This is what I wanted to get to. Let me read that. Let me read that to you again. They see all clear thinking and all sense of reality and all fineness of living threatened on every side by propaganda, by advertisement, by film and television. And if I may correct Mr. Lewis, because this quote was from 1961. If I may be so bold as to correct Mr. Lewis, I would like to add to that sentence music and social media. Propaganda is not a bad word. The definition of it, by the way, is definition of propaganda, number one, capitalized, is a congregation of the Roman Curia having jurisdiction over missionary territories and related institutions. That's the actual definition of propaganda. It was an organization by the Catholic Church to send out missionaries. Nothing nefarious there. Nothing untoward, right? As a matter of fact, you would expect some sort of organizational abilities going into something like that. Number two, the spreading of ideas, information, or rumor for the purpose of helping or hurting, it says injuring, an institution, a cause, or person, right? So propaganda can either be helpful or hurtful. Helpful if you're using it to, help yourself or you're a friend, or hurtful if the way that you're trying to help yourself or your friend is by damaging the other guy. Number three, and the last one, it says ideas, facts, or allegations. So ideas, facts, or allegations spread deliberately to further one's cause or to damage an opposing cause. All right, so even in that, it's denoting it can be used for nefarious purposes, but the definition itself doesn't say that the use of it is nefarious. It's just ideas, facts, or allegations spread deliberately to further your own cause, right? Which may or may not be evil or nefarious. It could be totally fine. Or to damage an opposing cause. Like when we see people running for president or Congress or whatever, there's always those ads that are, attacking the other guy. Okay, well that is an example of propaganda. The other side of that is to be, take the same congressman who's running and he says, listen, man, I love fishing and I want to protect our oceans and I love puppies and I think abortion is bad, whatever, that is propaganda. He's trying to help his own cause. Under the very definition, according to Merriam-Webster, since 1828, the word propaganda could be used in that context. Well, I'm creating propaganda to further my own cause. So the things that you need to know about me, if you're going to vote for me, is I love to go fishing. And if you love fishing and you want to keep fishing, you should vote for me because I'm going to do things that are going to protect our lakes and our rivers and our oceans. And I hate abortion, so if you're pro-life, you should probably vote for me. And whatever, that's propaganda. Do you understand? The reason I'm getting so exhaustive on this is because I know that just like me, you have it in your mind that the word propaganda by itself means something dirty is going on. And it does not. I've told you this before in advertising, right? Now, I just have a radar for this. I don't know where I get it from. I think maybe, but I think I get it from my mom, because I remember like watching Saturday morning cartoons when I was a kid, and then a commercial came on and said, hey, if you buy this this gold-plated necklace with a diamond-like stone pennant, right? It's only, this would be valued at thousands of dollars if it was real, but today you can buy it for $5. And I was amazed. Like, you gotta be kidding me. You're telling me something that's worth thousands of dollars, I can buy it for $5? I mean, if I did that, I could take that $5 thing, turn around and sell it for its true value. I mean, I could basically just print money. This is amazing. I don't know how old I was, 5 or 6 years old, and I ran to my mom. I was like, Mom, you're never going to believe what I just witnessed. Get this. They're selling a gold chain. It's plated. And I'm too young to know what plated means, but I'm sure it means it's made out of solid gold. And there's a diamond pennant in the middle. And it's worth thousands of dollars. They're selling it for $5. Can you please teach me how to use the telephone? I need to call these people and assure them that my $5 is on its way. And she explained it to me. I think it was that day when I realized that bullshit was streaming through that television screen. Bill Hicks said, Bill Hicks, the great comedian, he died some time back, but Bill Hicks said, watching television is like taking a can of black spray paint and spraying it directly over your third eye. Right? This Bill Hicks said that. He's a comedian. Now, I don't like it when people refer to, your what is it, your pituitary gland? No, pineal gland, I'm sorry. When people refer to the pineal gland as the third eye, but there's actually very good reason for referring to it that way. You have a pineal gland, it's behind your head, and by the way, mine has been hurting for about 1.5 years now. I don't know what's wrong. But you have your ability to discern things and to see, to recognize patterns and all that. That's all your pineal gland. All right. And Bill Hicks said, like, watching TV is like just taking black spray paint. Just, look, propaganda is what I'm getting at. And I have a meter. It's very difficult to get me into a place where I'm tricked. That's why I love, like, in advertising, that's why I've said it so many times before, like, if you make me laugh, in the 30 seconds that you have to sell me your wares, I'll probably buy it even if I don't need it. I'll probably run down to the store and pay my $10 or whatever, just as a way of saying thank you. Thank you for being clever. Thank you for being creative. Thank you for making me giggle. If you could make me laugh, it's like that's the thing. But mostly, I guess what I'm getting at here is propaganda. I'm looking at there was a post recently. Somebody was bringing attention to the fact that if you go onto Google, right, and listen, we're gonna get down some rabbit holes here. Go onto Google and just type in the word unplanned. You may have heard of this movie recently. Don't even type in movie. Just type in unplanned into Google. And it says unplanned, rated R, 2019, the year 2019, drama slash propaganda. Right? That's just typing in the word unplanned. Propaganda. See, most people, almost all English-speaking people, when they hear the word propaganda, they equate that word propaganda to lies. And although that's almost always the case, it's not what that word actually means. Right? So believe it or not, this use of the word propaganda, as it applies to the movie Unplanned, is actually accurate. Right? The people who made Unplanned was like the head, I think it was like the person who wrote it, was an actual lady who was in charge for many years of a Planned Parenthood abortion center. It was that lady that was testifying before Congress explaining like what actually goes down in those places. So she wanted to let people know what the truth was for the purpose, right? For the purpose of people making more informed decisions about where they're going to come down on Planned Parenthood and the 500 million or billion, whatever, dollars that they receive every year from the American taxpayer. It is propaganda. You are being illuminated. Right? You are being shown the light, and it is done in an effort to get you to move in a certain direction. In this case, move away from abortions. By definition, it is propaganda. It's not wrong. But you'll never see this word propaganda when it comes to, all these movies about like Hitler in the you go on Netflix, there's 50 different documentaries about Hitler, not a single one about Stalin or Pol Pot. That too is propaganda. But you'll never see that word propaganda being used from Google. And so the communication from Google is in of itself propaganda, the nefarious kind. So they're trying to push people away by labeling it propaganda because most people don't know what that word actually means. They just think propaganda means institutional lies. And that's not what it means. YouTube censoring people. YouTube is owned by Google. YouTube YouTube just Steven Crowder just announced that YouTube has seen fit to once again not only demonetize them but to shadow them, to make it so that their videos don't pop up as readily as they would have, say, a month ago on your YouTube list. That's censorship, and that is a method of propaganda. To withhold information from you, to withhold any form of entertainment from you that goes against their narrative, is by itself a communication. Right? You take if they can remove Steven Crowder's voice from your head, it leaves space open for, I don't know, the Young Turks, or whoever, Trevor Noah, or these kind of people. You see what I'm saying? It is propaganda. Silencing Steven Crowder is propaganda of the nefarious sort. Right? Do you guys remember? Here's a really good example of like propaganda gone wrong. You guys remember when we were kids? Burger King, right? You guys remember Burger King? Do you remember when Burger King was delicious? Remember that? It was a long time ago. They had the open broiler. Like they would take those meat patties and they would burn them with fire. And it was so much better of an experience than McDonald's. And the buns were fresh, which they're not anymore. Like Burger King was delicious, and then all of a sudden somebody took them out. I think Coke bought them out or something like that. And all of a sudden, they had an even deeper interest in the bottom line, in profits. So they started buying cheaper bread, cheaper meat, and they began this slogan, this propaganda slogan of "You can have it your way." Like you can tell us, like if you don't want onions on there, you don't have to have them. If you want the meat patty fresh off the broiler instead of just sitting around under a heat lamp, you can have it your way. And that was propaganda. Nothing wrong with that, but people soon realized, like, no, I don't like the way this tastes. I don't want to eat this anymore. And so what did they do? They didn't go back to, selling good hamburger buns that were fresh. They didn't go back to buying, a more expensive, higher quality of meat. What they did instead, you guys don't remember this? Was this like the mid 90s? Maybe it was after that. Maybe it was the early 2000s. But they decided what they were going to do was they were going to virtue signal. They were going to let everybody know that they were not homophobic bigots. Right? Now follow me here. This is one of the bizarre things that we see in our world these days. What does the employees of the Burger King Corporation, what does their stance on gay marriage or anything like that, what does that have to do with you buying food that you're eating because you can't go home and just make yourself a meal? Or because there wasn't enough time this morning for you to pack a lunch, and so you're kind of forced into eating fast food. What does that have to do with anything? You remember that? And they put that rainbow wrap around their hamburgers to let you know that even though you're eating this disgusting hamburger that tastes like shit and the bun is hard and not tasty, right? But you're doing a good thing. You're eating this shitty food, but you're still doing a good thing because after all, you're helping out the gay folks. It's like, wait a minute, this doesn't have anything to do with anything. These two things do not have anything to do with one another. Propaganda. It was their way of virtue signaling and letting you know, like, hey, buy our burgers, we like gay people. It's like, well, they still continue to lose tons of business because at the end of the day, even gay people, when they eat, they prefer to eat delicious food as opposed to garbage food. You go over to Chick-fil-A, right? Who? They're not in favor of gay marriage. And people protest them and whatever. And their profits are skyrocketing. You want to know why? Because their food is delicious. When people eat, they're not thinking about virtues. They're not thinking about your stance on abortion or gay marriage or refugees or immigrants or whatever. All they're thinking is like, I need to eat and I need to buy my food from a place that gives me the most pleasurable experience while I do this thing that I have to do on several occasions during the course of a day. Propaganda. Burger King propaganda didn't work. Because at the end of the day, the consumer said, I don't like this. This doesn't taste good. I don't like this. Now, what is YouTube doing? What is Google doing? As they silence Louder with Crowder, as they silenced PewDiePie, as they removed Tommy Robinson from their platform altogether, as they've moved to take away Alex Jones and even Rush Limbaugh, right? It's there's a system in place. If you want to listen to the Rush Limbaugh show, the people that put it up, they have to take it down within like 24 hours, so you have to catch it just right in time. What are they doing by this? They're virtue signaling. They're putting the wax paper around the hamburger with the rainbow flag around it. They're saying, "Oh, buy our product." Why? Well, because we like gay people. Okay, but that doesn't have anything to do with what I want to consume. I'm trying to consume Louder with Crowder right now because he talks about the news in a way that is funny. And if I don't laugh at the absolute tragedies going on around me, I'm going to lose my effing mind. I want to consume, I want to eat this particular product. And the fact that you've taken it away from me and put a rainbow flag, wax paper wrap around the Young Turks, this isn't, it does not by itself make the product more delicious. It just tells me that this is what your virtue, I don't want to buy it. Now, you have to think about this I'm sorry, once again, you don't have to do anything. You're a grown-ass man. What I would prefer for you to think about, and I think that this was what C.S. Lewis was trying to convey, is listen, every time you turn on a podcast, including this one, every time you turn on the television, every time you go onto YouTube, every time you open up your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram accounts, you are subjecting yourself to propaganda. Any form of entertainment, any news article that you read, right, is going to have a certain amount of propaganda in it. This particular podcast, believe it or not, is hopefully is here to cause you to take the vehicle of your life and veer it in and careen into the kingdom of heaven. And to seek out the Most High God. And to learn of Jesus Christ. And to learn what it was that he did. Why he did it. Where that puts you. All those certain things. It's all propaganda. I'm trying to influence you to steer, to get your life to move in a certain direction. And there's nothing wrong with that. You turn on Tucker Carlson, you turn on Joe Rogan's podcast, you turn on the Red Elephants, Owen Benjamin, anything. By definition, it's all there. It's all being produced to, try to assist in the direction of your life. Right? And so you have to look at everything. Any advertisement, any movie, anything on TV, anything on YouTube, any podcast, anything, any news article. It's all propaganda. Every story that you hear, because that's what a news article is. It's a story. Any book that you read, it's a story. Any television show, any film, any movie that you watch, any advertisement is trying to tell you a story in an effort to influence you. Now let's just replace that word story with sermon. Most of, I said books, but honestly, there's even history books, history is very often, brought to you by, somebody that, has a subjective point of view, because history is written by the victors. You don't read a lot of history books written by the losers. Just look around and understand that everything that you are being offered for consumption is being offered to you as a sermon, a way to affect your faith, either for the good or for the bad. They're trying to affect your faith, as am I. I would not shy away if somebody says, well, your show is just a bunch of propaganda. It's like, yes, yeah. I'm trying to point to Jesus and say, hey, quick, go follow that guy. He has all the answers. Yeah, it's propaganda. I'm trying to propagate the faith, right? Wow, I didn't even try for that tie-in. It's all propaganda. See it that way. See it as a sermon. See it all as a sermon. You want to watch the Young Turks and what their everything is racist, all white people are evil. It's like, do you want that in your soul? Is that the doctrine you want to follow? When television commercials come on and it's a super sexy 19-year-old girl eating a greasy cheeseburger on the hood of a 57 Chevy or a Lamborghini, they are trying to affect your soul. In a very weird way. It's like, wait a minute. That, number one, that girl does not eat that food, not ever. And number two, it's like, why are you trying to get me to eat your crappy Carl's Jr. hamburger by making me horny? I don't get it. I don't see where those two things connect, But it's propaganda. You have to see it as a sermon. Is that the doctrine that you want? Because if you went to church, right, the guy gets up there on that stage, and by the way, everyone, I'm sorry for all the background noise, but a guy gets up there on stage and says, listen, man, I figured it out. I figured out what this Bible's trying to tell us, man. Jesus Christ died and was resurrected again so that you could be financially prosperous. Right? Now, let me give you all of these scriptural references to prove my point. That's propaganda. Right? And again, the word propaganda is neither evil nor righteous. It just is a word that means, to try to propel, to push, to propagate, You have to decide in that moment, like, do I want to sit here and listen to this guy pour garbage into my soul? It's just like if you were reading, what's that guy's name? Rob Bell. If you want to read that garbage, then I do recommend that you read it. For the same reason that I think that you should listen to Representative Ilhan Omar. I think you should listen to her. Why? Because then you'll know what the enemy is thinking. Because she has no filter. She is a filthy demon. She is an unclean spirit. Just out there barking mad. And you need to be abreast of what she's saying. It's like, no, that's like, you need to know that that's going on. You should listen to her. You should hear it out. Just don't let it into your soul. Just understand that, like, that is a sermon, and you have to decide, do you want to let that into your soul, or do you want to look at that and reject it and say, okay, I've heard you out. No, I reject that. Whatever the opposite of what you just said is, that's what I believe. It's just like if you go and listen to Joel Osteen. Jesus will make you rich and pretty. Well, okay. No. I mean, I'm glad that I heard you out, because now I know what demons are up to. Now I know what the doctrine of demons sounds like. And so I'm going to listen to it for that purpose, but I'm not going to let it into my soul. And this craziness, YouTube censoring Steven Crowder, YouTube censoring PewDiePie and these Alex Jones and all these people, Tommy Robinson. This is what I wanted to get at. Somebody wrote me the other day, one of the OGs, and wrote me a question. Says, let me read this to you. It says, hey, Pete, I remember you were talking about an investment that you made, some profits. However, it was an investment of some sort of conflict. Derek, I don't remember what you're referring to. He says, I'm just curious. I have a really tough time investing in companies like Google and Apple, etc. I understand that they could make a ton of money later. However, they are constantly attacking our First Amendment. Would you invest in Google, Apple, Amazon, and Twitter today? And my answer to that is two things. if they begin coming under the law, if they begin getting treated as news companies that have to be, particular about what they do when it comes to the First Amendment, then I would say yes, you should invest in those companies because their infrastructure is already there. Right? And if they come under the law to where they won't be able to shut people out anymore, then yeah, absolutely. Amazon is going through a huge book burning right now. They're taking down all of these books and oddly leaving books up there like Mein Kampf and books about pedophilia that encourages pedophilia, but they're taking down Jordan B. Peterson, which, by the way, I've done a full 180 on my stance on Jordan Peterson. I'm not a fan anymore. But to take his book down? No. No, I need to be able to read his book so that I can read what he thinks and then go through that journey of being a big fan of the things that he's saying and then read his book and go like, oh no, wait a minute, this is nonsense. He's just writing a book of nonsense. I need to know what he thinks. I need to know what's going on around me. I need to know what he thinks because there's a lot of sheep that are just going to follow him and I need to know what they think. I need to know what the people around me think. You're just going to ban this guy's book? And, I was not advocating for banning Mein Kampf. No, people need to be able to read Mein Kampf. Because one of the most evil people who ever lived wrote it. And in order to discern evil, like you need to understand its rhythms. You need to hear what it sounds like. I'm not for banning any of that. Somebody writes about, I can't remember, I think it was Owen Benjamin that was pointing out, like, no, that they're leaving this, you can still sell this book about like the positive things of pedophilia. It's like, no, we need that person to be published so that we know who they are. And we can track who's buying that book. You know what I mean? Like that's why I'm always against censorship. Having full access to everything, it makes it infinitely easier to spot the bad guys. When Mein Kampf comes out, it's like, nope, bad guy. You're a bad guy. These people write books about pedophilia. It's like, okay, you're a bad guy. Now we know who you are. And anybody who buys your book, they go on the list. So to answer the question, would I invest in it? It's look, if these people are brought under control, yeah, absolutely I would invest in those companies. But if they're going to still keep going all willy-nilly and, censoring Jordan Peterson and Tommy Robinson and Alex Jones and me and PewDiePie and Louder with Crowder and all of that, no, I would not invest in them. And not out of spite either, but because the longer this continues, the more people see it. This is the positive side of propaganda, is that we can all see it. And when news articles come out and the propaganda comes out saying, hey, Louder with Crowder is being like the equivalent of shadow banned on YouTube, right? Well, that information pushes me in a certain direction. It pushes me in the direction of DLive, where PewDiePie is moving over to, and his 100 million subscribers. And where, no doubt, Louder with Crowder will be moving over to, or some other platform, like DTube, or that thing that Vox Day and Owen Benjamin just started, or whatever. He'll be moving. Him and his nearly 4 million subscribers. Do you see that? The longer these companies, Google, Apple, Amazon, Twitter, these companies, the longer they censor people and, besmirch and censor, they even took down the Twitter page of Unplanned the movie for a day. The longer these people do it, the more the information, the propaganda comes out that these things are going on, the more it pushes me and you and these other people to other platforms that you've never heard of. DTube, DLive, whatever .tv, this, Owen Benjamin and Vox Days thing, like you've never even heard of them before. But guess what? Gab AI. We're all going to be migrating over there because we're sick of these people's shit. We've been effectually propagandized by Google, Apple, Amazon, and Twitter. The propaganda has worked. Congratulations, Google. You have effectively, with the use of your propaganda, moved me away from your company. And no, I would not buy stock in Google if they're not brought under the law. But then you get into the whole, there's a whole... Listen, if you want to know how people like Nancy Pelosi, got to be, almost with a net worth of $200 million on less than $200,000 a year, you want to know how that happens? It's because of lobbying by companies like Microsoft and Google and these kind of people. Lobbying which they themselves, the Congress people, demanded. That's a whole nother episode. I'm not going to get into it. But anyways, if these people are not brought under the law where they are beholden to the First Amendment, no. I wouldn't invest in them because they will go the way of the buffalo. The longer this happens, the closer we are to some billionaire somewhere saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm just gonna throw all of my wealth into buying an entire county's worth of computer servers, and I'm gonna start my own Google. And I'm gonna spend all this money that I have on assembling a team of 500 lawyers like Google has." Because that's the only way to do it. And the more they do that, the more other billionaires and people who actually do have the resources or know enough people to where they could pool the resources, the closer we are to getting to that. Because competition, they're begging for it. They're begging to be competed with. Now, if they straighten up and fly right, it will remove the necessity for competition. But right now, with all of their propaganda, they are creating the necessity for competition. It will be their own downfall. But the reason why people haven't already made the switch to Gab AI and all these other platforms yet is because it hasn't yet become that bad. Right? It's getting there. And I think that they're going to shoot themselves in the foot on the 2020 election. I think that they're going to censor the president. And they're going to completely censor, Louder with Crowder and all these other, people, Rush Limbaugh and all these other people. They're going to shut it all down. And then in so doing, they will be exposed. And then the real migration will happen. Because even liberals now are seeing, they see Ilhan Omar up there saying some people did something. Okay, well, that's propaganda. You're trying to lull me into believing that it was no big deal. Well, listen, bitch, I remember that day. As a matter of fact, I worked in that industry, and we had people that worked in that building on my company's behalf. We knew people that died that day. Some people did something. You mean 19 Muslims murdered 3,000 people? You mean those somebodies and that something? There was a man just a couple of days ago tried to murder a 5-year-old little boy. This precious little boy at the Mall of America in Minnesota. And spoiler alert, he is of northeastern African ancestry. Takes a 5-year-old little boy and throws him from the 3rd story. That little boy's not out of the woods yet, by the way. Lying there in a pool of blood, they said. The mall had only been open for 17 minutes. It wasn't midday. It was the doors opened. 17 minutes later, the screaming began when people saw the lifeless body of this 5-year-old little boy in a pool of his own blood. A man who lives in Ilhan Omar's district. A man who is of northeastern, which means Somalia, Eritrea, those nations. He's one of them. He's one of Ilhan Omar's ilk. Just picks out a random little boy and throws him 3 stories down, possibly to his death. You know, that kid's not going to be out of the woods for a while. He's still alive, but not by much. And no matter what, that family, it looks like they have a GoFundMe, but that family's, they will never recover from that. That little boy is going to need medical care for the rest of his life. You know, I mean, unless the Lord Jesus performs a mighty miracle, that little boy is never going to be the same. Some people did something. No, that African threw an innocent little 5-year-old boy off of a 3rd-story building because he doesn't like white people. He hates being in America for some reason. He wanted to make a statement. Some people did something. Anyways, I was going to go into the whole, how to send money on PayPal. I'm not going to. I think that would be vulgar. You know what? Like, you should find that kid's GoFundMe. Go send some money. Go send a couple of bucks to those people. They've already raised like almost $500,000, but I mean, if you guys know anything about medical bills in America, you know, those people are going to be needing money for the rest of their lives. So, I mean, if you would, the problem with that GoFundMe, I only have one problem with it, is the person who created it. It says, "Oh, I'm a friend of the family." It's like, I don't know. It's a little worrisome. There's people out there who would actually create a GoFundMe like that, just trading on that little boy's name, you know? And there's really no way to verify if your money's going where it truly needs to go. So I would do a little bit of research, but yeah, my solicitation for funds for this show, let that, like, if you're in the giving mood, track down that family and send them a Finsky 10 spot, whatever, and pray. Pray for that little boy and pray for yourself. Father in heaven, Lord God Most High, what would you have me do with this information? What kind of man, what kind of woman should I become now that I am aware of this thing that just happened? What will you have me become? Let your will be done in my life as it is in heaven. Because if you don't come down and impose your will on me, I'm going to turn into a monster. You know? Let everything that you consume be viewed as a sermon. Every song that you listen to. Every television show that you watch. Every YouTube. Every podcast. Every article that you read. Let it all be to you, when you sit down to consume it, view it as a sermon that you're being propagated, you're being propagandized, you're being influenced to move in one direction or the other. Just understand that going in, because when you see it that way, it's like, then you can look at it and say, well, I'll take this, and this over here that I was just offered, I will not take that. It's like just like when listening to a sermon. Like the guy's up there, he's saying something really good. And you're like, oh yeah, I totally agree that. And then they say something weird and bizarre. It's like, no, I don't like that. I don't receive that. That's fine. It's like when you're listening to the sermon, some of it, just receive what you can and don't worry about the rest of it. If you can't receive it, then just be like, no, I don't want that. No, I don't think we should be having gay marriage in this church. But what you said a second ago about this, that, and the other, yeah, that's cool. It's the same way with information and music. Have you noticed music? The new music nowadays, it's just a bunch of nonsense words. I didn't want to go off on this. You think about it, like I used to love listening to Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and those bands. You ever go back and listen to the lyrics? It's just a bunch of nonsense words. In my eyes, indisposed, in disguise as no one knows. It's like, Chris Cornell, would you please stop doing the heroin? You just said a bunch of nonsense words. It doesn't mean anything. And if you look over the entire, the entire thing, the entire catalog of music that you can listen to, almost all of it. You listen to the lyrics, you're being hypnotized to repeat nonsense. You're being taught through music, which is the most effective way to teach people. That's why the ABCs is a song. You're being trained to repeat nonsense words. Don't do it. All music, all television. Let me just read this to you again. They see all clear thinking, all sense of reality, and all fineness of living threatened on every side by propaganda, by advertisement, by film, by television, by music, and by social media. C.S. Lewis / Pete Dobson, 1961. That's the show for today. I will talk to you tomorrow.